Let's see. That's off. That's off. That's off. That's on. Alright, I think it's good. Let's do it. Hello! Shadowcat back with more Babylon 5. Yes, it's time for this again. I'm excited. However, my eye is like grossly overworked, and so I can barely see right now. So we're going to do the best we can. Not only can I barely see what I'm doing, but I have 3 ships that I want to get through today instead of just the usual 2, and so it's going to be a challenge. Okay, we're going to do this though. However, I see already that Blizzard is in the chat. Hello, Blizzard. Good to see you here this morning. And now JP is here. Hello, JP. Good to see you too. So, we're not going to waste any time today. I'm just going to say real quickly that if you're here and you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. If you do that, make sure you hit the bell icon that we get notified every time the videos come out. If you know somebody else who's also into either Babylon 5 or Starfinder, then go ahead and, share this with them. Otherwise, if you just like what we're doing here, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. If you're going to leave a comment down below, though, might I suggest that you go ahead and join the Discord, because we have one. The link is down there somewhere. So join the Discord, go to the Behind the Screens channel, and if you want to play with us, let me know what your availability is and what games you want to play. Once I get enough people, we'll play. So, go ahead, do that, and JP says, barely see, close some spreadsheets. So, yeah, that's actually kind of the problem. I spent yesterday working on my Star Trek game, which JP says plug the Star Trek game. Yes, we are playing a Star Trek game. It is called the B Team. And they are currently traveling across Federation space to finally get to the plot. There is a plot. They've avoided it for the longest time, but there is one. But anyway, I spent a good, 10 hours or so working on it yesterday. And so I only have one eye. I have 2 physical eyes, but one of them has a detached retina, and it is completely blind. So I have one eye that has to do kind of double duty for everything. And if I abuse it too much, it stops working. Literally, it gives up like a toddler, okay? It'll just lay there and do nothing. It completely unfocuses. The iris muscles just relax, and yeah. After that, you can no longer focus on anything, which means you can't read anything. You can barely see anything. You can see well enough to navigate for the most part. Like, you can avoid furniture. I'm not falling downstairs or anything, but the ability to actually, like, do things is gone. So I come with kind of like a built-in limit. It's not fun. And JP says 10 hours. Damn. Yes, 10 hours on part of the game that, quite frankly, you will never see, which is the fun part. Because it was all about the Alliance Borg War. And so I had to go through and polish the simulator because the simulator wasn't working up to the standard that I set. And so I spent a solid 9 hours or so working on the war simulator, making sure that it was as perfect as I could possibly get it. And the funny part is that the only part that anyone will see from it is the battle reports that they get along the way. I don't know. It's important to me. It's important to me. And then I had to work on getting more events done. I still have more work to do on that too. So, JP says, stop abusing yourself. One cannot get a restraining order on oneself. It's alright. I'm too lazy to fill out the paperwork anyway. Alright. So, we're going to get into this. first things that we're going to need? I'm going to need to have my browser. There we go. And I'm going to need to have my spreadsheets. Because that's how we do everything. It's spreadsheets. And they say that spreadsheets don't make for good streams. We're making spreadsheets fun again. Alright, so we're going to take a step backwards, of course. We'll go over quickly what we did last time. I decided that I'm going to give humans their own spreadsheet because they have enough vessels to warrant it. And I'll just give each different race their own spreadsheet with their own ships. So, last time we were here, we did the Warlock class and the Victory class. And if I could pull up pictures of those, that'd probably be better. Of course, that's a big if I can pull up pictures of them. If I come here, I believe this site will give me some decent pictures. So, Earth Alliance, here we go. So we'll start with the Warlock class. Go away. So many pop-ups. And I can't even stop them. Yeah, there's not really any good pictures of a Warlock class. But it's okay. We'll make do. And I almost sneezed. That would be bad. Alright, so, Warlock class. It is a Tier 18 ship. It is a Dreadnought, okay? Which is just fantastic. And it deserves it, too. The Warlock is a Dreadnought, and the Warlock appears to be purpose-built to be a Predator, which is why we built it as one. It's got standard thruster speed, which is good, which means that this thing can keep up with everything. We don't actually get a slow ship, you know, air quotes, until the Victory. So far, everything has managed to stay right there in that perfect wheelhouse. And that's not really by design, that was coincidental, but it worked. At 600 hit points, or hull points, it's an absolute monster. Like, with 15 points of damage reduction, an 80-point critical threshold, and 600 hull points, like, this thing is not suffering internal damage. You will need an actual natural 20 to hurt this thing. And, let's see. JP says, a Warlock class suggests that there should be a Witch class. You know what? You can make your own ship and you can call it whatever you want. Now, the interesting thing that I thought was down here at the power cores. Now, this is really nothing. But according to the data sheet that we had, it has 6 reactors. 6 reactors. It has 4 standard reactors and 2 advanced reactors. Now, there is nothing in the material that tells us exactly what a standard reactor is and what an advanced reactor is. So I just had to kind of make it up. I took the amount of power this thing needed, which is a lot. It has a PCU of 880. And I said, all right, what is the highest, or the next highest level I can go that I can divide by 8? Which I did. And if I divided it by 8, that gives us these pulse blacks. Then I took the pulse black, doubled it, and said, all right, this is how much PCU I need. What power core fits that? And turns out it was the pulse orange. So, it's a little bit roundabout, but with 4 pulse blacks and 2 pulse oranges, we've got the regular reactors and the advanced reactors. It doesn't matter much, but it is a nice little detail. Call it an Easter egg. As far as the weapons go, like I said, it's an absolute monster on pretty much every direction except for the back because it's meant to chase things down. It has a forward railgun, as well as port and starboard railguns, particle beams, pulse cannons, and missile tubes. I mean, even if we went to the wiki page, down here, they have an image that literally says the starboard missile silos, so we know that we had to add those, and they had to be on the starboard. Didn't read that last time, but, you know, we needed it. So, we've got missiles all around. There's nothing on the aft, because looking at the ship, everything seems to be pointed forward. Or if not pointed forward, pointed to the sides capable of swinging forward. Which is why the only thing pointing backwards are the point defense turrets. If you get behind it, well, you might be in somewhat of an advantageous position. It's still got missiles, though. Not to mention, it still has a whole bunch of Star Furies. Probably Thunderbolts. So, that's the Warlock. Now, as far as the Victory class goes, if I pull back here and try to get a good picture of it, the ISA... Destroyer class... Okay, they call it the Destroyer class White Star. But it's the Victory class, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So, this is the Victory class, and we built it, and it looks good. It is the first Tier 20 ship that I have ever built, at over 1,000 build points. It is a Super Colossal Ultranaut, which is the biggest ship that you can get in Starfinder. It's not even in the base material, it came from an expansion. It's the first one that's slower, moving only 6 hexes, but that's okay for a ship like this. It has over 1,000 hit points. It has a damage reduction of 20 and a critical threshold of 110. You could nuke this thing and not even come close. Now, the only thing that's really missing from this ship is that supposedly, per the source material, it does have a crystalline alloy which gives it a very, very special damage reduction. It is partially built on Minbari and Vorlon technology, and Vorlon ships are basically untouchable. However, I didn't add anything special because it already has a higher damage threshold than everything else, just by naturally being an Ultranaut. So I felt like it was really unnecessary to give it even more damage mitigation than it already has. As far as the weapons go, it's the first ship that we built that has an actual spinal weapon. And we gave it an orbital weapon because it can be used to fire on planets. Not usually, but it can be. Otherwise, it has tons of fusion beams, which are just meant to be big beams to harass things, as well as nuclear missiles. It doesn't say nuclear missiles on any datasheet, but I kind of feel like they're not going to be throwing anything less than that. It's got cannons on port and starboard. It's got more fusion beams in the back because you are not going to chase this thing. And then, of course, point defense all the way around. And not to mention hangars. Lots of hangars. This thing carries a whole bunch of fighters. So, that's what we did last time. And now, we're going to get into something different. And I do not need this column. Delete that column. Okay, so we're going to go to Minbari. Here we go. Now, they only list 3 ships here. There's the Charlene-class war cruiser, there's the Leandra-type attack ship, and the cruiser from the Shadow War era. Now, this one... Again, it's just a war cruiser. We only see it once, at the end of one episode. And so, we're not doing that one. As far as the Leandra-class... Again, we only really saw it like once. At least I'm pretty sure we only saw it once. Or no, wait, I know this ship. This was exclusively done in the movie. So yeah, we're not bothering with this one. They call it a Leander class, but I know nothing about it. We don't have any information on it. Which means that the only ship that we're really building here is going to be this one, the Charling class warcruiser. We'll do this. We're going to do their fighter craft. Maybe we should start with the fighter craft, actually. It's okay. I've got another page. So, fighter craft. If we come down here to the Minbari, there's Minbari Flyer, which is just a transport, hybrid fighters, Shadow War eras, but the one that we really want is the Nile class. This is their bread and butter fighter. It is going to be an interceptor because it explicitly only carries one person. Like, you cannot fit 2 people in this ship. We even have a picture right here of somebody in it. You literally lay down inside of it, and that's it. You get a little round window to see through and pretty much nothing else. So it says the Minbari Nile fighter is one of the strongest fighters among the younger races. It sports an array of advanced systems, firepower, and maneuverability. The armament consists of 3 light neutron fusion cannons, similar to those found on the Charling-class warcruiser, although much less powerful. Defenses include a Minbari stealth system, making a weapons lock difficult for other races. We'll get into that. Due to the fact the ship is designed primarily for hit-and-run attacks, it carries only a limited air supply, has no jump capability of its own. It does have a higher speed and more armor than other fighters of the younger races. It is outmatched in maneuverability only by the Earth Force Star Fury. However, as a Nile's armor can absorb a large number of hits from human weapons, and the stealth system makes it maintaining manual target lock difficult, this was not a major detriment. Now, some of these things that I'm going to be able to model. Some of them I may not be. So we'll have to work on that. Now, while in flight, the pilot operates the ship from the prone position with their head tilted back 90 degrees to look out the front viewport. This proved problematic for non-Minbari rangers, particularly humans, as their physiology could not maintain such a head position for extended periods. Human rangers were thus in general forced to use alternative craft. Even after the founding of the ISA, the introduction of more races and into the ranks of rangers, they continued to train recruits who were biologically compatible with the use of the Nile. So we got that. And if we come over here to the actual tech manual, we can look at the tech sheet for this. And unfortunately it gets cut off a little bit, but that's fine. We'll make do. It is 22 meters long, 63 metric tons. It has a microfusion reactor. It has 36 hours of operation. It has 1 pilot. It has 3 heavy neutron guns coming out the front of it. And it has 5 centimeter reinforced polycrystalline armor hull, as well as 3 tractor beams, and I don't even know why it has tractor beams because we never see them. As well as a Minbari stealth device. And I'm not even sure if it's an actual stealth device. It could be. They're always described as having stealth. They're also described as just not being able to lock onto them. So either all of their ships are being equipped with stealth devices for some reason, or they just have different construction. We're not sure. But let's go ahead and start with this one. So, for starters, this is going to be a Minbari ship. It's the Nile. Now, crew is going to be 1. Period. That's it. You can only put 1 person in it. Size, it's going to be tiny. Frame, interceptor. And it has to be an interceptor because it's the only ship that has a single pilot max. So, let's start filling things in. We'll come over here to base frames, and we'll start looking into this. And JP says, for starters, who gets to start? I get to start. It's my stream, and I can start if I want to. Okay, so Interceptor. So maneuverability is perfect. And they're going to get that even though the Star Fury also has perfect. All interceptors have perfect. There's nothing I can do about that. That just comes naturally. That gives them a +2 bonus. And the turn rate is 0. It means that they're going to have a damage threshold of none, obviously, and a critical threshold of 6. And the hull point starting out is going to be 30. Alright, so we got that. And naturally, they do not get any kind of expansion base, so we don't need to worry about that. I need to clear out this green because they are definitely not getting that many weapons. And I'm just going to fix my lines here real quick, too. So we're going to do this. And let's see. I want this. Perfect. That's what I wanted. There we go. That looks much cleaner. Now, interceptors. They only get 2 forward weapons, which is great. Because that's going to really kind of help what we're doing here. And how do I mean that? Well, according to the data sheet, it has 3 forward lasers. Well, 3 forward beams at least. And the interceptor frame, by default, only has 2. But if we remember, the Star Fury got a pair of cannons and a grappler. Well, we're just going to give the interceptor additional weapons. The only problem with that is that you're only allowed to shoot 1 weapon, I believe, per weapon arc. So if I come down here and we look at minor crew actions, snapshot, you can only fire 1 of your starship's weapons with a -2 penalty to gunnery check. You can take this action only if no other gunner actions have been taken. So even if we give it multiple weapons, that's not really going to do anything for us. You'll never be able to fire all of them at once. So then how do we adjust this? How do we fix this? I'll work on it. We have some time on this. All right, scrolling down further, computer. It's going to be a basic computer because as far as we know, there's nothing special about it. Countermeasures. Technically speaking, as far as we know, there are no countermeasures on the craft. Now, the only countermeasures it has is going to be that stealth device. And we'll get into that. Sensors, as far as we know, are going to be just your basics. They're not going to be cut rate. What's the next step above cut rate? I believe it's basic short. This is crew actions I want over here. Sensors. Yeah. Budget short. Budget short is what we're looking for. And then there is no expansion space because it's an interceptor. Alright, so going back to what we were doing before, thrusters. We're pretty much going to give it the same... Well, actually, no. We're going to give it better thrusters because we can do that. We gave the Star Fury the T8 thrusters, I believe. Did we? I'm going to go back and look at that. Or did we give it the T10? We gave it the T10. Okay, well, then guess what? They're going to have the same thrusters. They're getting the T10 thrusters. There's no bonus on these, and that's that's intentional. They could be upgraded, but for now, we're not looking to make, you know, a better standard. So it's going to be 30 and 5. Also, how much is the interceptor costing us? Base frames. The interceptor is going to cost us 6. Now, armor. This one is actually a little bit interesting because it does say that they are better armored. We can do that. Now, the last thing that we want to do is to armor this thing to the point where we're actually hampering it. Okay, we do not want to take away from its ability to maneuver. We don't want to take away from its armor class or anything like that. So, when we look at armor, we're looking at pretty much anything in this area that does not have any kind of penalty. I think the best way to go, because I want to keep this thing under... I want to keep it under a tier 1 or a tier 2 if possible. I'm going to keep it under a tier 2 because anybody should be able to get into one of these things after they're trained and fly it. So we're going to go through, we're going to build everything else. We'll come back to armor at the end and see how much room do we have left over and how much armor can we give it based on our budget and our performance. That may mean that we simply don't get to put any armor on it. And armor may just be a flavor. So we'll come back to that. See, armor class and target lock. These are going to be both 12 by default because of the maneuverability. Shields don't have any because there's no shields in this game. Power core will be the last thing we do. Jump engine specifically. No. They do not have one. Alright, so that will bring us back to the weapons. Now, again, I said that we would cross that bridge when we got to it. Now we got to it. So, first things first, we know that it has these fusion beams. And we also know that, per the rules as written, we cannot fire more than one weapon per turn. So, giving it additional weapons, I don't see how this is really going to help us. In that case, we may actually have to go with that weird tractor beam. Even though I don't recall seeing one ever before. But it says it has 3 tractor beams. I guess mounted with the weapons? I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and start with the beams first. Now, obviously, they're going to be light weapons. And it just says that it has 3 heavy neutron guns. And I know from the pictures, if we look at the pictures, they are very clearly beams. So we want to try and preserve as much of the cannon aspect as we can. They don't do anything special, And so I'm thinking that they're going to be either some kind of laser or some kind of particle beam. Which makes sense. Most fusion beams are literally just channeling high energy particles, and so particle cannon makes sense. And right here we've got a particle cannon. It's medium range, does 3d6. Now this is interesting actually. If we come back here and look at the Star Fury has a pulse discharge cannon. If we scroll down to the notes, the pulse discharge cannon is a light plasma cannon. Looking over here, we've got the light plasma cannon right here. Its short range does 2d12. The light particle cannon does 3d6. So it's a little bit less powerful actually than the other one. Unless hold on, I need to check the rules. So refitting and upgrading. Greater dangers mean PCs will require more powerful weapons in order to survive and triumph. Unless they begin flying around with an escort of armed battlecruisers, the weapons they start with will eventually become inadequate. Bigger weapons require the correct weapon mounts. By spending 4 build points, the crew can upgrade a light weapon mount in any of the aft, forward, port, or starboard arcs to a heavy mount. Let's see. Heavy weapons can be mounted only on medium and larger starships, so putting a heavy mount on this interceptor would violate the rules as written. Doesn't mean I can't do it, but we do want to try and stay within the boundaries as much as possible. What would that do for us if we did do it, though? Well, what if we didn't go with a light particle cannon? What if we just went with a particle cannon? So let's just investigate. Particle beam. Here we go. The particle beam does 8d6 damage. 6 times 8 is 48. So that's the cap of the damage. The minimum is going to be, of course, 8. That means that the average is probably going to be somewhere in the 32 range. 32 damage is enough to destroy a Star Fury in one hit. However, if we were to do this, that is 25 build points. Or no, 25 PCU and 20 build points. That is a lot. Here's what I think I'm going to do. I think I'm going to try it. I'm going to try this, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and say, in the notes, neutron fusion beam equals particle beam. Right? And this means that it also has a long range of fire, which I don't know about that one. It seems a little bit much. I could custom build it too. I mean, I could do that. But I'm trying to keep everything as close to rules as written as possible. So up here, neutron fusion beam. This is going to be right here. So it's long at 8d6. Why does my text keep coming out white? There. And there's nothing special about it. It's just a weapon. It's going to be 25 and 20, which is going to make it easily the most expensive thing on this ship so far. And again, I might regret this decision. We'll come back to it and reevaluate once everything is done. Coming back up here, tractor beams. There is this Hookhauser. It doesn't have anything on it, but it does have tractor beam on it. Let's see. A weapon with this special property can generate a stable beam of gravitons, creating a tractor beam that can move other ships. In addition to dealing damage, a hit with a tractor beam prevents the target ship from moving normally. The gunner can push or pull the target at a rate of 2 hexes per round, resolved at the beginning of the helm phase, or hold the ship in place. The pilot of the targeted ship can attempt a piloting check to break free of the tractor beam as her action in a round. When a tractor beam weapon is locked onto a starship, it can't be used as a regular weapon. A tractor beam is effective only against other ships of the same size as the firing ship or smaller. Larger ships will be simply unaffected, which makes sense. However, since the datasheet says it has it, I'm going to give it. I have no idea how useful this is. And there we go, tractor beam. If we come down here to the notes, we'll make sure to add this. There we go. We've got that. And that is 5 PCU and 14 build points, which is kind of a lot. Okay. The basic computer is free. Budget short sensors. What are those going to cost us? Budget short's going to cost us 2. No, not 20. Just 2. However, there is still one more thing to add before we can go in and actually start the, Why is my mouse not working now? Why does everything go wrong on the stream? There's one more thing to add before we can go in and start calculating the... And now I can't type. Before we can start calculating the PCU. Unfortunately, I'm going to need my mouse for that, so I got to wait until my mouse is working again. It's all right. I'm running the utility right now. We need that stealth field. There we go. Now I got my mouse back. All right, so stealth. Now, technically speaking, there is stealth in here, but stealth is different. It's a bit weird. And stealth is going to fall under security, I believe. Right, so here we go. Cloaking. Now, for anybody who's playing my my Star Trek game, you'll know that I removed cloaking, and that's because cloaking in Star Trek is way too powerful. Any ship that is cloaked in Star Trek basically doesn't exist. That being said, however, cloaking does exist in Starfinder. It's just different. So let's take a look. Now, cloaking technology is not widely available in near space, which is just kind of their version of inner space, but scientists have developed several systems that enable starships to avoid detection by other starships. The ship vanishes from view based on the cloaking device's level. Another ship must have sensors at a minimum level to detect it. So, cloaking technology is named for the maximum quality of sensors that cannot detect a cloaked ship. Cut rate cloaking devices only fool cut rate sensors. Budget cloaking technology fools only cut rate and budget, and so on. Sensors capable of detecting a cloaked starship can only do so when the cloaked starship has entered the sensor's first increment. Engaging a drift engine or thrusters or beginning a starship combat immediately negates the cloaking ability, whereupon the ship reappears and can be detected normally. So, if you begin starship combat, you lose your cloak anyway, which makes it really powerful from a narrative standpoint, but not much else. And so we have these. The problem is, as it says, the cloak, it stops working as soon as you enter combat. And that's the big thing about the Minbari stealth systems, is that they were basically impossible to hit in combat. So they didn't have cloaking. We can't use that. And so how else do we do this? Well, I mean, we do have defensive countermeasures. So defensive countermeasures are systems that protect a ship from tracking weapons such as missiles, and they make it difficult for enemies using sensors to get a solid reading on the ship. They do this via a complicated suite of electronic sensors and broadcasting equipment that's designed to jam enemy sensors and create false readings. These systems grant a bonus to the ship's target lock. The bonus PCU usage and cost are listed below. Now, this does not grant them additional armor class, just target lock. And JP says, nukes! Well, that's the thing. The way we're working on this is, if we make the Nile class appropriately, then you won't be able to nuke it. That's kind of the idea. So we're going to want some armor. We're going to want some countermeasures. We need to make this thing heavier than the... we need to make this thing heavier than the Star Fury. Let's start off before that with just going through and totaling up what we have now. So we have 30 PCU, 25, although this may get cut down. This makes 60. So far we're looking at 60 PCU. Okay, so we got 60 PCU. And JP says, they have an EMP element, you know. We should look into that for the Phoenix. We've been ignoring that. No, you have not. The fact of the matter is that, and I'll do a quick little detour back to weapons here. Nuclear weapons in Starfighter do not have natural EMP. Tactical nuclear missile launcher. This is what you have. It has irradiate. So if it hits the hull, everyone on board must make a fortitude save versus low radiation, or else they're going to get radiation poisoning. And PC's in. Hello, PC. Good to see you here. So that's where that's what the nuclear missile does. There are EMP weapons. If I come up here, EMP, here it is. Light EMP cannon. It doesn't do any damage, it just EMPs things. So the effect is there, it's just not tied to nukes. It says here, a weapon with this special property emits a beam of electromagnetic energy that does not damage ships or shields, but plays havoc with a ship's electronic systems. On a hit, any hit, even if you hit shields, the EMP weapon scrambles one of the target systems determined randomly. This causes that system to act as if it had the glitching condition for 1d4 rounds. And if a system is already damaged, you increase the critical damage by 1 level of severity for 1d4 rounds. Whenever an EMP weapon scores critical damage, it scrambles 2 systems at random. These systems can be patched as normal. Functioning shields are unaffected by EMP weapons. Okay, and completely... So, never mind. Shields will negate them. It's only on hull damage. JP asks, does that radiation stack with multiple hits? No, but every hit does force a new fortitude save. So even if they succeeded the first one, if you nuke them again, they still have to roll again until eventually they're gonna fail. Although, to be fair, most armor, which pretty much everyone is going to have some form of armor, most armor does provide protection against low radiation anyway, so it balances out. It's not nearly as bad as you think it might be. Okay. So, getting back to this, we have 60 PCU right now. What do we need in terms of a power plant? It's somewhere in here. Power core. Here we go. So, 60. We could make that work with a Micron Heavy. So, we'll go ahead and we'll do that. We'll do that. So, Micron Heavy has 70 PCU, but we're not done yet, so we may need to change this. We're balancing a lot of plates here. That is 70 PCU and 6 build points. Alright, so time to work on the build point aspect, because now we got to work on... What are we going to do here? So currently, we're looking at 6 and 5 is 11, plus 6 is 17. I'm going to get my calculator out for this one, actually. Just because I really don't want to do the math. So 11 plus 6 plus 20 plus 14 plus 2 is 53. Now, that is a problem. That is a problem, and it's a problem because Tier 1 caps out at 55, so we're already riding on the edge, and we haven't even given this thing defensive countermeasures yet, or armor. So, while having a heavy weapon up here is nice, it's going to have to go. We can't do this. Which means we're going to have to come back here to weapons and pick something else. And I pretty much already know what I'm going to pick out. We know that we can't do the heavy particle gun, so we're going to go with the light particle cannon. Now, this still has an advantage. It does a little bit less damage than the Star Fury, but the Nile's going to have additional armor that's going to make it more competitive, and it's going to be medium range instead of short range. So it's either that or the light laser cannon, but the laser cannon is even weaker. That's not necessarily the worst thing, though. I'm going to go with the particle cannon for right now, and we're going to recalculate things and see how they go. So, again, I really shouldn't have deleted that. I can bring it back. So since we're using the light particle cannon this time, medium 3d6. That one is only 10 and 10. I'm not going to update that yet. So the last one was 25 and 20, I believe. Heavy laser cannon, particle beam. Yeah, 25 and 20. So it's PCU minus 15. Puts that down to 45. And I believe we said this was 53 before. That's going to bring that down to 43. which is good. That's much more manageable. Alright, so now that we've got that, let's make sure that we give this thing a little bit more defense, because it is defensive. We'll come back to defensive countermeasures. How much is it going to cost us for 1? Well, for 1, it's only going to cost us 2 build points. And we have, let's see, 43 to that is going to be, we have 12 to play with. So, if we wanted to make this thing as mean as possible, that's about 6 points to spend on each. Which means we could go as high as Mark IV defenses. If we go back to the armor is 1 times the size category. The size category is, of course, 1 because it's tiny, which means that we could spend up to 6 points here as well. We could give it Mark IV armor. If we did that, Mark IV armor and Mark IV defensive countermeasures, we could make this thing seriously dangerous. But do we want to? I don't know if we want to make it that dangerous, to be honest. I'm not going to. I'm going to give it Mark I defenses because it is still a fighter. Okay? It's just a fighter. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the armor it gets is going to be Mark I. And that's no PCU, but it is 1 build point. Okay? Super cheap. We can slap it on there. No big deal. The defensive countermeasures, I will give it Mark I defenses. And so, 1 PCU and 2 build points. Alright, so our PCU is going to go up by 1. That makes it 46. And 1 armor plus 2 for the countermeasures is 3, so we're going to go up to 46 build points. Which, 46 build points is still firmly in Tier 1 territory. Unless somebody can make the argument that we should go all the way and just use all the build points up to there. For Minbari, it might make sense. JP says, it's just a fighter. The last time we encountered a fighter, it had an assimilated Gorn Borg. Technically, that was a racing craft, actually. But yes, you're right about that. I am inclined to leave this as is. The Mark I armor is going to up the armor class by 1. The defensive countermeasures will up the target lock by 1. Part of me just kind of feels bad about this, though. Nope. Actually, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to go with the Mark IV armor. I'm going to go with the Mark IV defenses. And the reason is this. It's going to be a difference in doctrines. Okay? So, with humanity, with Earth, we generally do not make every single thing that we make top of the line. I mean, yes, we have some really awesome technology. We have really awesome fighter craft and everything. But they're not the bleeding edge all the time. We make them good. In fact, sometimes we might even make them exceptional, but they're never the pinnacle. They're just the best that we can do while still producing many of them. So for the Mark IV armor... Ooh, maybe not Mark IV, that's... No, yeah, that's 5. and the Mark IV defensive countermeasures. That's going to be 3 and 6. Not 30, just 3. Alright, so this is going to put us all the way up to should be 54 build points, if I did my math correctly, and an additional 2 there, which is going to be 48 PCU. I could technically bump the power core down to a micron light. And that only costs us 4. Which is going to save us another 2 build points, which will end it at 52. We are still solidly a Tier 1 ship. And there we go. We got our fighter. And it looks decently mean. The weapons are a little bit less powerful, but it does get longer range, which means it'll get more shots on target, ideally. And this is going to be a light particle cannon. Alright, so, very good. We're done with that one. And I feel good about it. It feels appropriately mean. Also, now these are both 4s, that means it's going to be a base 16 in both of those. Base 16 means that I hope you've got a good attack bonus. But that's appropriate, because humanity had a hard time even locking on. That meant that they had to use visuals to even hit the things. So it works. Okay, next one then. Because, again, the Minbari don't have a ton of ships. Oop, nope. Minbari, Charlin class. Alright, so let's go back to the Charlin class and take a look at it. And I'll try to speed things up a little bit here now that we've got some of this stuff worked out. So, the Charlin class. They just classified as a war cruiser. Now, the interesting thing here is that with humanity, we had a progression. We had the Hyperion, which was a huge ship that led the Olympus to be a large. And we could escalate from there. The Nova and the Omega were carriers, then we had a Dreadnought, then we had the Ultranaut. Everything had some kind of reference point to it. With the Charlin, this is kind of their only ship. And so we're going to have to figure out exactly how do we establish what it is. And I think it's going to end up being a carrier by virtue of it being a carrier. But we'll have to wait and see. So, technical details. The main capital ship of the Minbari fleet, the Charlin stealth systems, gave it an advantage over the scanning and tracking systems when it was active that would prevent some races from achieving positive weapons lock. It was also equipped with advanced scanners, so powerful. Alright, right there. Advanced scanners, so powerful that when set to maximum, they've been known to interfere with the electronics aboard less advanced starships, effectively jamming their systems. This ship has got chops. And so we're going to have to make sure that we reflect that. However, that's about all it says. The data sheet over here says it's jump capable. We know that. It has gravitic engines. That's an important point. These things actually do have artificial gravity. So we're good there. Weapons, 12 fusion lasers, 6 neutron cannons, an electromagnetic pulse cannon. I don't know anything about the electromagnetic pulse cannon. I guess we'll look at the datasheet next. Defenses, disabler and tractor beams, and Minbari stealth systems. Well, the stealth systems are basically just going to be defensive countermeasures because they don't have a cloak. Auxiliary craft, however, 15 Nile-class fighters. 15 of them. That is not a lot. That is... That's a couple of hangars, I guess. If a hangar holds 8 tiny craft, it's 2 hangars. When you compare that to the other ships... Alright, so let's look at the datasheet then. Not this one. This one. Okay, Charlene-class warcruiser. This one says it is 1,600 meters, 44.4 million metric tons, 190 crew, 8,000 troops, 15 fighter craft. Okay, we understood that. Powered by 1 quantum singularity and 8 fusion reactors. A quantum singularity. It runs on a black hole? Okay, apparently Minbari are Romulans. So I learned a thing today. Now, weapons. Oh my goodness, this has so much more. 18 gravitic neutron cannons, 18 fusion beam cannons, 24 EM neutron guns, 24 EM fusion beam guns, 42 electro pulse guns, 4 missile launchers, 1 antimatter cannon, and an optional mass driver. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Okay, we're going to do the best we can. What I can do is I can collapse some categories here. These gravitic weapons, treat them all the same. So, I mean, I guess it's just got a whole bunch of those. The EM neutron guns. The other one did say that it has electromagnetic weapons. The other thing is, though, that, like, EMP weapons don't do damage. And if these are your electromagnetic weapons, then what's an electro pulse gun? And then 4 missile launchers? And the one thing that I do not see on here is point defense. So, I don't know what we're going to do with them. Now, I could make this really easy and just say that, you know, it gets... Or we could put the EM weapons on turrets, that way that it basically functions kind of the same way. It doesn't actually stop incoming missiles, but EM weapons mean that it could screw with any ship that got close enough. So we'll work on that a little bit. All right, so for starters, JP says, I think they are actually weapons that include the EMP trait. And, I mean, that's fair. I'm kind of assuming the same thing. Alright, so... size and frame. We gotta start with this. Because we can't build anything else until we have this. My first thought is going to be naturally a carrier. Because it's pretty much the smallest frame built for hangars. And in fact, when we look at the carrier, it's gargantuan, has poor maneuverability, which these ships are never really shown to be terribly agile. The mounts, it has a forward capital weapon, 3 starboard and port heavies, and 2 turrets. It says it has 10 expansion bays, must have at least 1 hangar bay. We know that we need 2. And so this will work. The only ship smaller than this would be a battleship, and a battleship has 8 expansion bays. Since a hangar costs us... a hangar costs 4. The battleship could do it. Now, it does stipulate that it is a war cruiser. Battleship does kind of make more sense. But are we doing ourselves any favors with this one? The forward... Let's see. The carrier has 1 forward capital weapon. That's 1. Port and starboard, 3 heavies. That's 7. 2 turrets is 9. The battleship has 1 capital and 2 heavy forward. That's 3. Port and starboard are 2 heavy, 1 light. That's 9. 1 on the aft, and 2 turrets. That's 12 weapons. I think we'll go with the battleship frame, honestly. Alright, I'm set on it. We're going to do a battleship. Size, gargantuan. And the frame is going to be a battleship. And before I forget, how many build points is this? Because I always forget to do this. It's 150. Okay, maneuverability is average, actually. So we're already getting a bonus from the carrier. The turn rate for average is 2. Now, that means that the armor class by default is 10, but that's before we add any kind of armor, and I'm sure that we will add some armor to it. Damage threshold is 10, and the critical threshold is 56, which is good. That's a solid ship. 280 hit points, but we will be adding to this. Now, shields and a blade of armor. We're not using them. Power core we will get to, however, it must be jump capable. Now, weapons. We already said that it has 3 in the forward. It has 3 in port. Three in starboard. It has 1 light on the aft. And 2 turrets. And let's just go ahead and label these because I'm going to need to. So forward is capital and 2 heavy. Port and starboard are 2 heavy, 1 light. Aft is 1 light. And the turrets are both heavy. Alright, so we got that. And PC says point defense is flinging with a tractor beam. Maybe. Maybe. Alright, so we have a combination of capital, heavy, and light weapons here. We have a lot of weapons that we need to adapt. And I'm not even sure how we're going to start with this. I will start by putting the crew in here. It says crew of 100. Well, 100 to 800. I'll just put that in there like that. All right, let's go back to the data. Well, this says crew of 190 and then 8,000 crew or 8,000 troops. So I'll say 190 there, and then passengers 8,000. Okay, so first things first, thruster speed for a gargantuan vessel. So we're looking at the G's, and it looks like the best we can do is going to be the G8. And yes, there are piloting modifiers for the lower ones, but they are, of course, also slower. So G8 is going to be the way to go. And the G8 is going to cost us 240 and 16. It's okay, though. We're building a big ship. And there's no bonus on that at all. Armor, we will get to later. Same thing with the power core. Computer. Again, there is nothing to say that the computer is anything special. There never seemed to be any kind of intelligent or anything like that, so computer, we're going to stick with basic. But that's okay, because now is where we get into something else that is really, really cool. And that is going to be the sensors. Now, as it pointed out, the sensors were so very powerful that they actually acted as an electronic weapon against younger races. So, we are looking at the highest tier of sensors. Now, what can we do as the highest tier? Ultra long range. That is the best we can do. And so we're going to give it to them. We're going to give it to them. Ultra long. That is long range with a modifier 6. It's going to cost them 20 build points on its own. Still, though, it's earned. Okay, now, as far as the weapons go, let's go ahead and try to break this down as best we can. So, again, we have gravitic cannons. So we got those. We have EM neutron guns and EM fusion beam guns. So I'm just going to say EM guns. Then we have the 42 electro pulse guns, whatever that is. Four missile launchers. And one antimatter cannon. So we need to start identifying what these are going to be and where are we going to put them. Because we have 5 arcs to cover. We have 3 weapon categories, capital, heavy, and light. And we have 5 things to fill in. Now, obviously, if we have one antimatter cannon, period, it's going to be our capital weapon. So let's go looking at that. We'll figure that, or we'll do that one right now because that's going to be the easiest one. So scrolling down to capital weapons. First things first, do we even have like an antimatter cannon? I don't think that we do. We have an antimatter missile, but not a cannon. So, yeah, here's the antimatter missile launcher. What even is an antimatter cannon? I presume that it is a cannon that shoots a shell of some kind that has antimatter in it. Which means basically it's a cannon with explosive ordnance. I'm not sure what we're going to do with that. Let's see. PC says step 1, tractor beam fighter. Step 2, hold in front of main gun. Step 3, profit. I'm not sure how that's profit. I don't think there's going to be anything left. You're not even going to be able to sell the copper. Alright, so, I need an appropriate weapon for that. And I really don't have one. So I'm looking for something that does not have any kind of special on it, because as far as we know, an antimatter weapon is not going to have any kind of special properties. It's obviously not going to be an array kind of weapon. It's not going to be a tractor beam. It's not a ramming weapon. It's not a teleporter. So that means that we're down to the mass driver, the particle beam cannon, the persistent particle beam cannon. And I'm just not sure. I think because it would have to fire some kind of shell, the mass driver is probably the way to go. It's the thing that makes the most sense. It's long range, which it needs to be. It doesn't have any kind of special property. It's what I'm going to have to do. It makes the most sense. And I could agonize over it for, a long period of time, but I'm not going to. So, antimatter cannon is going to equal mass driver. Let's see. PC says maybe consider it as the power source for the weapon. Immense power immediately driven into a shot. Well, if I was going to do that, and it's not a bad idea, it's a good interpretation. We're going to be looking at it in one of two ways. Number one, power. Well, what kind of weapon would need power then? Well, there's basically two kinds. There's energy, and then there's railguns. If we were using an antimatter reactor to power rails, that still makes it a mass driver, because it's driving mass. Now, I realize that mass driver has different connotations in Babylon 5 versus, regular physics, but the point still remains. Otherwise, if we're talking about using an antimatter reaction and then funneling the energy from that down a barrel, that would make it a particle beam. I think. I'm not positive, honestly. Because physics says that when we introduce matter and antimatter, they annihilate. And as such, there wouldn't be particles? Except for maybe photons? And yeah, I know wave-particle duality. Photons are technically a particle, but that would essentially then just make it a laser. So I'm not sure. It's hard to pin it down. I can look at that, though. I mean, I have both of those. So, we have a particle beam cannon and a persistent particle beam cannon. If we wanted to say that it's funneling the energy from it, persistent particle beam makes sense. If there's actual particles. Otherwise, there is a super laser. It's pretty much the cheapest of all the, it's the cheapest out of all the capital weapons. PC says there's also lower tier particles, you know, quarks, gluons, things like that, which is fair. You know what? I'm going to make an executive decision here. I'm going to go with the persistent particle beam, actually. Why? Because the Minbari ships are always seen using those green lasers. Well, not really green lasers. They're a lot bigger than that. They're giant green beam cannons. And for some reason, I can never spell persistent right. I don't know why. Something in me is broken. Persistent particle beam. Okay. Next up, that's going to be our capital weapon. So, antimatter cannon. The persistent particle beam is... What did I do? Actually, scroll down to the bottom of the page. Where is it again? There it is. It's going to be 50 and 40. And it deals 2d10 times 10 damage at long range. And then there's nothing special about it. Okay. So, next. That takes care of one of them. Now, we still have heavy weapons on the forward port starboard, and we have light weapons port starboard aft, and then we have turrets. And I have four more of these. It seems to me that given it has some 36 of these gravitic cannons and 48 of these EM guns, these are probably going to be our heavy weapons. I'm going to assume, at least. Although, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe the missiles should also be heavy. What if we did heavy, light, and heavy? Let's look at our options for heavy missiles. Okay, fortunately, heavy missiles are always in the bottom. There's a heavy antimatter missile launcher. We already know they're using an antimatter cannon, so why not give them heavy antimatter missiles? I think that's a pretty good idea. I think we'll do that. So the missiles is going to equal heavy antimatter missile. Now, it says it has 4 of them, and I don't have really a way to give them 4, so the best I can do is either going to be 3 or 2. I could put them on the port and starboard, and then maybe elsewhere. We'll see. So the missile is going to be tracking 8. And then it's going to deal 10d10 damage. And it's limited to 5. So put those port and starboard. And it's going to be 15 and 35. So that takes care of that one. Next, the gravitic cannons. If they're also going to be heavy, well, let's take a look at what we've got. Now, it's a bit hard to really tell what is a gravitic cannon because we don't really know what a gravitic cannon is. And PC says, can I put one of those on a ship and name it the Big Toe, and then make it my mistletoe? You can name your ship whatever you want. I literally will not stop you from naming it whatever you want. Okay, so... we have a gravity gun here, but the gravity gun is a tractor beam, not like an actual cannon. It's not going to be a Gatling cannon. Probably not a heavy laser cannon, although it could be wrong on that one. They don't give really enough to gauge what is it and what does it do. And there's nothing on this page. And there's nothing here in the little thing. It just says the Charlotte-class war cruiser is the largest, most powerful ship in the Minbari fleet, capable of laying waste to cities, infrastructures, and habitable surface of a planet in less than an hour's time. Ooh, actually, we never read that. That changes things a little bit. Capable of laying waste to cities, infrastructures, and the habitable surface of a planet in less than an hour's time. Controlled by all 3 ruling castes in the Minbari culture, the warcruiser can be sent into almost any tactical situation. Should we change that capital weapon? Should we make it an orbital weapon? Well, now hold on. That is an option. Capital weapons. Somewhere in here, there is an orbital weapon. Here it is, the Super Orbital Death Knell. And the Super Orbital Particle Cannon. Super Orbital Particle Cannon is exactly what we're looking at here. I think that's not even... That's just... Yeah. Okay, never mind. Clear these out. Clear these out. So the Super Orbital Particle Cannon is going to be long 2d6 times 10. And it has the properties of line and orbital 10. And it's going to cost us 50 and 60. I am not getting a White Star done today. It's just not happening. And JP says, my ship is now whatever you want. Have it your way. I've seen more ridiculous things, like if you want to see ridiculous things, go down to the horse track, alright? And just look at the names of the horses. After you've seen that, nothing else is ridiculous ever again. Alright, so I still need... I need to change this, actually. Super Orbital Particle Beam. I still need to know what the gravitic cannons are. And for gravitic cannons, I'm going to go with the persistent particle beam. The reason being, number one, it's on theme. The Minbari use beam weapons. Period. And JP says, I think that yacht names are like that too. I'm not as familiar with yacht racing. To be honest, I'm not as familiar with horse racing either, but I have heard the horses' names, and they're ridiculous. But yeah, I'm going to go with the persistent particle beam just because it makes the most sense thematically, and I cannot think of a better explanation. So, gravitic cannon equals persistent particle beam, which is different than the capital version. And so, with that being done, gravitic cannon. Now, for the persistent particle beam, the heavy version, not the capital version, it's going to cost us 40 and 25. It's going to fire long at 10d6. And there's nothing special about it. It is just a damaging weapon. But the important thing is, we're going to have 2 of them forward, 1 port, 1 starboard, which is going to give it an absolutely excellent degree of fire. And we can take them off the list. Now, the EM guns. I may have brought myself into a corner here, because I cannot make both of the light weapons EMP guns, because then they would just be the same gun. Period. Unless I just do that. I mean, I could do that. The fact is that we need to have a port weapon, a starboard weapon, an aft weapon, and... oh, wait, there's 2 turrets that are also heavy. I guess those are also going to be gravitic cannons. There we go. So it's really just the port, starboard, and aft that need to be EM guns. And since this thing carries EMP weapons, we're just going to come up here and we're going to steal the light EMP cannon. Again, it doesn't do any damage. And so light doesn't matter. Light, heavy, capital, whatever. If we come up here to, like, capital weapons, do we even have a capital EMP weapon? Actually, we do. There's the super EMP cannon. And JP says easier to roll if they're considered the same, and they will be. The thing about, like, an EMP weapon is, like, there is no benefit to having a super EMP cannon, with the exception of this one has a long range. And the heavy weapon has a medium range, and the light EMP has a short range. That's the only benefit you're getting. So if we're going to treat the light EMP cannons as point defense, except they're not really stopping missiles, they're stopping fighters, light's fine. So I'm just going to come down here and put EM gun equals light EMP cannon. JP says the super should provide an AoE. It doesn't. And there's a reason for that. So the hexes in Starfinder, when you're talking about combat, are enormous. Your ship does not take up the entire hex. And that's how you can actually fly through an opposing hex. They get a free shot at you, yeah, but you're not going to crash into each other. There is zero risk of like collision unless you're actually aiming your ships for each other. So when you talk about AoE, you would have to talk about something that affects a 10-kilometer or 10-mile area. It's huge. And PC says the cannon gets golden spiky hair as a benefit. I mean, only if they come from one planet. That's because those people are weird. Alright, so let's get this on here so we can start working on the White Star, hopefully, at some point. EM gun. So it's going to be short. And no damage. Because it's an EMP. And where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Light EMP cannon. It's 10 and 8. All right, there we go. That takes care of all of the weapon slots. Expansion space, it does have 8. I forgot to put that in there earlier. Not 8,000, just 8, and that's fine. Expansion bays, hangar times 2, which takes up all of the expansion space inside. And I can't spell hangar. Okay, so now let's take this already overwhelmingly big battleship and make it meaner. First things first, let's go over power requirements. 240 plus, and now we get into the actual armaments. On the forward, that's 50, 40, and 40, that's 130. Let's see. Port is 40, 15, and 10. 50 plus 15 is 65. That's the same on starboard. Aft is just 10. And the turret is another 80. And let's see, hangars. Hangars have a power requirement, and I don't remember what it is. Expansion bays. Hangar bay is 30 and 10, which means this is going to be 60 and 20. Alright, so if I add the hangar bay in, that puts our PCU requirement, or usage right now, at 650. And now we can go through and add a power plant. Now, I don't really have anything that specifies a singularity core from a fusion core. All we have to go on is that it says it has 1 quantum singularity and 8 fusion reactors. I cannot even begin to guess what the difference between those is. Well, I mean, I can. Should we try? I might try. We need 650 power. So power cores, 650 for a gargantuan frame. Well, under a gargantuan frame, we are already over their largest core, so we're already looking at something bigger. So what if I said we're not going to abide by these and we're just going to install whatever it is that we need, kind of like what we did for the Warlock class. A singularity core probably produces as much power as all the other cores as well, so 650. What can we do? What if we went with like 800? Okay, 800 power. If we were to divide that by half, that means that we would need to have a 400 power core just for the singularity alone. That could be the gateway heavy. Now, 400 divided by 8 would be an additional, or be 50 each. We actually have that with the micron lights. So, I'm going to do something incredibly foolish, but why not? How much is a power core housing? 10. We're getting 8 of them. And yeah, I know, we're going over the expansion space with this one, but don't really have any other options here. So power core housing times 8. That's another 80 build points. PC says, I imagine it's like the Star Trek warp core. Singularity is the main ultra-high power, but there are still fusion reactors for propulsion and lesser power. I mean, that's generally how I think about it. That's why in my Star Trek game, every ship has a power core and a warp core. And the warp core even has a power requirement because the warp core needs power to function. Even though the warp core, once it does get going, is technically self-sustaining, it still needs an exceptional amount of power to bootstrap it. Alright, so, that done. We're going to come back here to power cores. The micron lights are going to be 4 times 8 is 32. And the gateway heavy is 40. So that's going to be a total of 72. So 72. It's going to be micron light times 8 and a gateway heavy. Why would you do it this way? I don't know, but they did. And this will give us a grand total of 800 PCU. And PC says, like a regular nuclear reactor, makes sense. Yeah, most people don't realize that, though. Most people think that, like power generators, you just flip the switch and it turns on. Of course, most people don't even think about where their power comes from. But most people think about that and they just say, well, you know, just turn it on. Maybe the nuclear reactor has a pull start. I don't know. Make sure that you turn the choke all the way up to start it. And then, once you pull it and the nuclear reactor starts, turn the choke down to halfway. Give it a chance to warm up first. That's not how it works. Like, once you get into big power plants, they require their own smaller generators to turn them on. And if you have any interest in infrastructure, I would suggest doing the research because it is absolutely fascinating. All right. Anyway, we've got our power plants here. Let's go ahead and total up how much build points are we using right now. And then we'll see how much armor and defenses we can add to it. So, for starters, 150 for the battleship. Next, 16 for the thrusters. $72 for the power plants, multiple. And then the armaments. 60 plus 50 is 110. 25, 35 is 60, plus 8 is 68. And we'll do that twice. 8 for the EM gun. And another 50 for the gravitic cannons. The computer is nothing special, but the sensors are. So that's 20. Then another 20 for the hangars. And 80 for the power core housings. Which is going to put us up to 662. So what does that do for us? Well, if we come back here and look at our tiers, 662 is already putting us up to a tier 17. Which makes sense. These are the mainstays of the entire Minbari fleet. In fact, we don't really see them use anything else. However, that also means that we have essentially 38 more build points to play with. And so what can we do for that? Now, this is going to get a little bit more complicated. And JP says 662. I know, what a monster. However, consider this. Let's remember back to Babylon 5, and remember that during the Minbari War, the Minbari Sharling cruiser was going head-to-head with Nova and Omega-class ships, and it was dominating them. If we look back at our human starships, and we look back at the Nova and Omega class, the Nova class was a tier 18, and the Omega is a tier 17. We are still very much in line with how things went down during the Earth-Minbari War. And if we look over here at the Hyperion, well, I mean, the Hyperion didn't stand a chance. And if I recall correctly, let me look at something here real quick. This is a minor rabbit hole. People, characters. Here we go, characters. I need Sheridan. What was the ship that Sheridan was on during the Earth-Minbari War? Let's see, rank captain, early life, Earth-Minbari War. He was offered a post as first officer on the EAS Prometheus. Now, is this the one that he actually... No. That he was offered that. During the war, he was first officer on the EAS Lexington. He took command when the captain was killed in a battle with the Black Star. Okay. So, the EAS Lexington was a Hyperion. And PC says, they can hurt it though. The opening salvo as a surprise attack shows pain, just not enough to destroy it. Yes, and this is kind of the point. So the point is that they were firing weapons at the Black Star, which was a Sharling-class cruiser. Just because it is a lower tier does not mean that the weapons shoot any less powerfully. So if we look over here at what we did with the Hyperion has phased particle cannons that deal 8d6 damage and nuclear weapons that do 10d8 damage. When we compare that to the armor class and target lock, and these will go up. Okay, these will go up. Of the Sharlan, yeah, it can hurt it. And if these weapons actually connected, it only has like 300 hit points. I mean, it's going to have a lot more hit points once we increase it, but still, the point is, yeah, a Hyperion with a little bit of luck could kill one of these things. But is it likely to? And the answer that we saw in the movie, in the show, in the setting, is no, it's not likely to. But what happened? They ran into a Black Star with this thing, And the Black Star did heavy damage to the Lexington in its opening salvo. And that's when they decided they were going to hide. And then what did they do? Well, in the singular turning point of the war, when the Minbari really got pissed off, they led them into an asteroid field, took the nukes out of their missiles, put the nuclear warheads on asteroids, and created a nuclear minefield. Then they just baited the ship into the minefield and took it out. So, looking at the tier, 17 is high, 17 is scary. But it is absolutely not insurmountable. And while there is nobody who's coming out really the winner of this fight, only one person's really going to walk away from it on a regular basis. So this checks out, and that was a Hyperion class. An Omega class would do better. Okay, but I am running out of time here, so let's see if we can get the armor and the defenses done. The hard part here is that I have 38 points to play with before I have to jump it up another level. Okay? That means that I don't really have a lot. What I do have is this. The problem is going to come in that all of these use multipliers. So for example, armor. It is 1 times the size category, 2 times the size category, 3 times the size category. Well, what is the size category for us? Tiny is 1, small is 2, medium is 3, large is 4, huge is 5, gargantuan is 6. It is a 6 times multiplier, and I only have 38 points. That means that if I were to divide the points in half, 38 is going to become 19. Then I have to divide that 19 by 6. That means that I only get 3. So I can have Mark III armor. That is actually less than the armor class on the Nile fighter. And this is going to push us up to 18. Or that's going to be 18 more. Next, I have to do the same thing with the defensive countermeasures. And defensive countermeasures... Oh, actually, this is a little bit better. These are not multiplied. This is just a matter of how much can we afford. And we can afford Mark 8, actually. We're taking it. We're taking Mark 8. Mark 8 countermeasures. That is 9 PCU and 18 build points. Okay. So, 662 plus 36. It's going to be 692, 698. We are still under the tier 17. And 9 more PCU is going to make this 659. We are still under our power requirements. It's done. It is absolutely done. So there we go. We have a Charlene-class warcruiser. A gargantuan battleship. I do need to update the hit points. I need to update the armor, base frames, heavy hauler, bulk freighter, cruiser, carrier, battleship. The increment is 40, so it's going to get 160 more hit points. So it's going to be... plus 60 is going to be 340, 440. And again, if we compare that to the other ships, the Omega and the Nova both have about 360 hit points. because they're a slightly smaller frame. It actually puts it pretty squarely in between the Omega and the Warlock, which the Warlock uses Minbari technology. Ergo, that makes sense. Mark 3 armor means that we're pushing the base armor class up to 13. Mark 8 defenses means we're pushing the target lock up to a base of 18. Missiles, basically useless. And trying to get a scan on this thing, also basically useless. So, with that being done, I'm happy with this. I think this looks good. And I am very excited to put one of these boats in the water. But we'll have to wait until we actually get the rest of them done. We did not get the White Star done. We will get the White Star done next time. I'll tack it on to the end. Who are we doing next? So that's pretty much the end of the Minbari ships. It has a few things listed over here. This Tinashi, yeah, that was the pre-war one. It does have the Lintira. That's just a scout ship. It's a transport. Glider class. Yeah, there's nothing here. And the Interstellar Alliance. Here's the Leander they were talking about. Again, this ship only appeared once. It was in a movie. I don't see a need to really work on or to do anything with it. We only ever saw one, so I don't know. Next, I don't know, Narn or Centauri. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the chat. We got to do both of them. The Narns only have. They have a few. They have a couple of fighters that we can do. As far as their capital ships go, I don't think we're doing all of these. I'll have to look at them. But we could spend a couple a day on the Narn. The Centauri, they have their own fighters. But, I mean, it says fighters and miscellaneous vessels. There's only really the one interceptor. And then for their capital ships, they really only have 2. I think. Maybe. There might be another one. I'm not sure. But the chat has spoken. The chat said Narn. I guess we're going to the Red Planet next week. So, that's what you got to look forward to. Okay. Well, we'll finish up the White Star. Then we'll start on the Narn. Should be a lot easier. The Narn are not exactly complicated. And I turned off the wrong thing. There we go. Clicking on the wrong buttons. Okay. Like I said, the Narn should not be that complicated because the Narn's technology is more on par with the humans. They do not have artificial gravity. They don't have gravitic drives. They are kind of like us, just barely hyperspace capable. And pretty much for the same reasons. Like, we bought our hyperspace technology from the Centauri, and the Narn stole theirs. So, I don't know. It'll take us a little bit of time, but I think it'll be fine. So, look forward to that next time. And until then, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm pretty sure everyone here already has, but, you know, just in case for any future people that might be watching this. If you do, don't forget to hit the bell icon, turn that on. If you know somebody else who's also into Babylon 5 or Starfinder is interested in that, share it. But if you just like me, like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. I will see you next time for more Babylon 5, and until then, take care.